us a note and say where you're watching from.
The last time I did a live, I could not see any comments that came through.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know where they are. Normally they're
On the bottom.
Yeah.
So if we don't see comments,
That's why.
sorry.
I'm gonna pull it up on my phone.
So who knows if it's a YouTube thing, if it's a me thing, which is entirely possible. But today's live wanted to talk about something that you may have experienced with deeper impression dyes, and that is the metal splitting at the edge of the design. These were the pieces that were in the video, or not the video, but the thumbnail of the video. And you can see the areas that are the most likely to split are these sharp edges along the top of the design. This is most common to happen with dyes that are pretty deep or that have really straight edges.
You're like forcing the metal into a direct right angle.
Yeah. Yesterday, if you haven't seen it, I did a quick, over here. I did a video showing how to press this big fly that is, it's actually up through today. So this little shot plate that has the 3 different size flies. But I did a video showing how to press this, and I got very close to splitting the edge. And you can see that on the back. That happened because I got in a hurry and I didn't anneal enough. I thought I could just press it one more time and it would be fine, but I got very close to splitting it. So it's something that happens. It will also happen with silhouette dyes, but there are a couple things that you can do to either troubleshoot like why it might have happened and then ways to mitigate it. The first way, and we're going to show you this, but when you are working with deeper dyes, your metal has to stretch a lot further than it would if you were pressing something, we'll just say like this design where it's really shallow. Your metal isn't going to have to deform that much to reach the bottom of the design, as opposed to a piece like this where it's 1/4 inch deep, maybe. So using a thinner metal on these deeper dyes is going to make it more likely to split because you don't have enough volume or mass of the metal to actually stretch and still maintain integrity of the metal. So you can use a thicker metal. I'm going to demonstrate on a couple different gauges. I'm going to show you, I think this is probably 26. This is super skinny, but I really wanted to just show you what it looks like when you full on split it.
So, like kitchen aluminum foil.
Another thing that you can do that will help is go slowly and anneal often. So we've mentioned it a bunch in all of our videos, is the main goal, what you want to do first is you want to get your metal down into the deepest part of the die first. If you can do that, you want to get that metal down there without trapping the rest of the metal on the surface. So let's say you used a big piece of urethane. That urethane would trap the metal, this like border edge, on the surface of the die, and then all of the metal that's in here would have to be stretched down. Whereas if you start, this one's a little bit different, but if you start slow and you just put like a tiny little piece in the deepest part of the die, you're gonna, without trapping the metal on the surface, you're gonna allow that metal to actually be pulled down into the die more easily than if this outer edge was trapped against the surface of the die. So thicker metal, working slowly, annealing more often, and not rushing. That's, like I mentioned, that's what happened when I did the fly, is I got excited and I just wanted to finish it, and then I
I
pressed
mean,
it.
how could you not?
I know.
Look at him.
So I was like, oh, just one more press, it'll be fine. And then it ended up being fine, but it's pretty close. So does anyone have questions? I guess we're going to do that. And then Lynette's going to show you, after I kind of just want to give you a visual of what it looks like when metal splits, things you can do to mitigate it. Lynette's going to show you how to soften these sharp edges on the die yourself, which will give it kind of a round over and allow your metal to flow in a little bit more easily. One thing about these dies, and I was thinking about it earlier, is when these were originally created by the companies that manufactured them, they were designed to be used with a series of specialized tooling for a very specific gauge and type of metal. And so they were able to control absolutely every variable because they were going to make tens of thousands of these things. And so we are using them with pretty much a huge range of materials and tempers of metal and stuff like that. So we sometimes have to make modifications to the die itself in order for it to work using the techniques that we have available to us. So just something to think about. Do you have any thoughts?
Not yet.
No? Okay. Then we're going to head over to the press. And we're just going to split some metal.
I tried to pull the video up on my phone. I don't know, like, we might have, like, comments, the setting turned off or something.
I checked to
I
make
can't
sure
see
that
it
the
as, like, a
comments
viewer.
were-
Oh, you did?
Mhm.
I don't know. It's weird. Sorry if you guys are commenting. We're just not.
We're not ignoring
Something
you.
changed in YouTube. We're going to have to figure it out. So we can't see them.
Okay, so we're going to be doing this side. I'm going to start. This is just sort of a show and tell, show you what happens. This is that super thin metal, not annealed.
So not only is it really thin, it's also hard. Oh, why did I take this off? Sorry,
you
I was
just did.
trying to help you, and I don't know why I just did that. I was like, she doesn't need this.
Sabotage.
She does. I know.
Sabotage.
Sure, you're using your tool steel pusher. Sorry, Annie. I don't
No, you're good.
know what I was doing. My
Okay.
own little world.
Use that really thin metal. And then I'm going to use a piece of urethane like this. This is small enough that it fits within the design, but because this metal is so thin, I think it's going to split it anyway. So this is just showing you sort of what not to do, which sometimes I think you can learn a lot more from mistakes.
Definitely.
So we want to show you mistakes. Watch it work. It didn't split.
Awesome. Yeah,
Oh, it did. Woo! It really did. Okay. Big time.
And sometimes people get really excited when they see that and they're like, ooh, it cut it out for me. But it also deforms the stamping in a weird way.
Yeah.
It's not what you want. You're not going for this.
Up here to be clear, maybe I'm not moving it, but you can see how now it's split, but it's
Wonky.
not straight.
Yeah. Just wonky.
So
Not what
too
you're going
thin,
for.
not what you're going for. I'm gonna do the same thing with a piece of annealed metal with that super thin.
Same gauge,
Same
but this is
gauge.
annealed now.
Yeah. So we'll see. This is sort of an experiment for me too. I'm pretty sure this thin gauge is gonna split no matter what. But just to see if there's any difference between the annealed and the full hard.
gooey.
It is super gooey. That one did not split. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
You can see on the back though, like it is
About to split.
about to split. Still, would not recommend using this thin of a gauge.
But man, it's
That-
nice and crisp.
In one single pressing, that was pretty nice.
Yeah, I pressed this design in 18 gauge silver, and I think it took me 3 annealing cycles, maybe 2.
Yeah. So,
Depends
maybe-
on what you're going for.
yes.
Jewelry this weight also tends to feel really cheap.
Even that by itself just feels like flimsy.
Cheap.
Yeah.
And it's strong. I mean, when you form metal this way, this is a strong little piece of metal now, the area that's been formed, but it just feels like
Meh.
cheap costume jewelry.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to step it up a gauge. This is annealed probably 20 gauge. I'm not for sure. But we're going to use that same piece of urethane. It seems to be a good size. I'm going to get it aligned in there. And so far, I am not working slowly. I'm just going like full send with the press. Mostly because I want it to split so that you all can see what that looks like. But let's press this. This might be 22. Okay, I don't know if you can really see, but you see how that edge looks kind of rippled, that far edge? It's not one here. To look. That's kind of an indicator that your metal is hanging on for dear life right there.
I think it split.
Did it split?
I'm pretty sure it did.
Oh yeah, it did. Usually I'm not excited about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just that little tiny bit.
Yep, I see it.
See my finger
Yep.
moving back there. So that's, going full force. Even with thicker annealed metal, you will still sometimes get that split. Now, what I'm gonna do next, I'm gonna switch over to, this is probably 18, not positive. This is not annealed. This is the last one that I'm gonna try and intentionally split. Just to show you how, even if your metal is thicker, if you're not working with annealed metal, you're still gonna have that chance to split. This one, I'm gonna use a larger piece to sort of illustrate the metal getting trapped by the urethane against the surface of the die, while it's also trying to force the metal down into the die.
Okay.
Okay. Will you fit under there? And this same thing applies to manual presses. We're just using the electric for speed's sake for the live. But just because you're using a manual doesn't mean that you're not going to get splits. And
I'm laughing because also Annie and I are both like 40 something, and you don't want to watch our arm flab move up as we pump the press.
So yeah, not annealed, pressed really fast, really with a large piece of urethane, and you can see that even that thicker metal split right at the edge.
Yep.
So here's what I'm going to show you. Like this one we're actually going to try and not split. This is that same probably 18 gauge metal.
But it's been annealed.
It has been annealed. I'm going to try and find a smaller piece of urethane in our lovely container of busted up urethane pieces. They come in so handy. Okay. look at the design. So this center part where that domed area is in the die, that's the deepest portion. So I want to try and get my metal down into the die at that point before I focus on getting detail elsewhere. So I'm going to take a tiny piece of urethane and place it so that it is pretty much centered over that deep area of the die. And instead of pressing it with the full force of the press, I'm going to just make sure everything's centered, and I just want to press it so that it begins to form the metal into the impression. I don't want to go full force at all. You see those edges curl up? I don't want to press down. I just want to get that little bit started. I think I'll go in a little bit more, maybe with that little larger piece. Every single die is going to be sort of an experiment. That's why before you start working in gold or silver, you want to make test pieces with copper or brass, just so that you can sort of figure out the process and troubleshoot any issues that come up. Okay, so still doesn't look like much, but when we take that metal out, you can see it has been formed fairly, deep. I'm going to go ahead and anneal it at this point because that is super hard. It's always better to anneal too much than it is to not anneal. I'm going to heat this copper until it glows red. Nice and red. Touch it. Toss in the pickle real quick. Our pickle's really hot, so it should probably be, won't take long. So no, we cannot see comments, that's weird.
Oh, yeah, I tried.
Well, we're not ignoring you, we just can't see you.
Be nice if they didn't change things on social media like every month.
Yeah. Then we could actually, make sure that we could see your comments. Okay, I'm gonna come back over. You want your first pressing to be deep enough that you can re-register the stamping back into the die in the exact same spot. I'm going to place that same small piece of urethane over that deepest part of the die, and we're going to press again. Getting a little motion. We'll do a little bit
You can
larger.
see where the metal gets shiny. That's where it's coming into contact with other metal.
Yeah.
So this area right here, it came into contact with the tool steel pusher. So you can kind of see like where metal's getting trapped, where it's forming.
One more time. And I'm not gonna go full send with this. I'm looking at the die from like eye level off to the side. bit more. There.
This actually is a bit easier to control if you're using a manual press. It's harder to control with an electric because you can't feel what's happening in the metal with your body. You're not feeling the amount of pressure required to push the metal down into the die. It's a lot easier to learn how metal behaves this way when you're using a manual press.
I prefer to use silhouette dies with a manual.
Same.
For that reason. Okay, so we're getting more detail. I'm going to try pressing one more time right here in the deep spot, but I'm gonna, let me grab, we should have more urethane. That might be good. I want to show people how easy it is to cut urethane. So the chunks that we sell of the urethane, they're like yay big. But sometimes you need smaller pieces. Like if you don't have all of this chunked up, busted urethane, you sometimes need to cut it smaller. Do not use anything powered, no power tools to cut this. Just use a pair of tin snips. These are nothing special. These are just aviator snips from a hardware store.
Got them at Home Depot.
Yep. Brand doesn't matter. Go to Harbor Freight. Does not matter. So now I have this tinier piece of urethane. Oops. And I'm going to...
And the reason you don't want to use power tools to cut the urethane is when it's heated, it releases toxic fumes. So you don't want to cut it with anything that's going to cause friction. Don't use your jeweler saw. Don't use a bandsaw. Nothing like that.
I'm not positive, but I think it's chlorine gas. Like it's something
bad.
It's bad. So just stick to using a shear. You can use a bench shear, guillotine, just nothing powered. Okay, you're gonna press again. No. More detail. Probably need to anneal it again. Let's try to avoid
Yeah, you got to think about what you're asking the metal to do.
Yeah.
And this is a really complex form with that like corrugated kind of zigzag design. It's going up, it's going down.
And that perfectly vertical edge. Okay, we'll anneal it again.
You're asking the metal to do a lot. Well, otherwise I'm just having them look at a boring, like, unmoving press.
This is true. I wish we could answer questions.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out for next week.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I think I'm not gonna anneal it. Or not pickle it. Yeah. Just to keep it going a little bit. Make sure that your metal is dry before you put it back in, or else your die will rust, guaranteed.
Too bad I didn't have the dies I rusted yesterday to show them. I had to clean them up this morning.
It was pretty dramatic.
Yeah.
Okay. So experiment with different sizes of urethane, different shapes of urethane. Getting a little bit more texture. I think what I'm gonna do, this is where those tiny chunks come in handy, is you can fill these deeper cavities with smaller chunks of urethane. It just helps you fill out the shape a little bit more. Oops. A little bit more efficiently than just a rectangular piece of urethane. And I think I'm gonna try and balance a teeny tiny one on top. Little sculpture there, it's fine art. I'm trying to get it to go underneath the tool still pusher. Okay, not happening.
Remember to use as many spacers as you can and still fit your tools.
not centered. I'm definitely getting more depth. I'm going to anneal it again. I'm probably being extra cautious.
You are.
I know I am.
It's okay though, it's good. I mean, if you're working with precious metal and you really don't want it to split, it's worth taking an extra minute to anneal.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was silver, what is that? Like a $20 chunk of
Probably.
silver?
I didn't even anneal that.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah. So I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive this time.
It's hard for Annie. It doesn't come natural, that aggressiveness.
Being aggressive. Mm-mm. A little overly cautious most of the time in my life.
Just a little bit.
I've upgraded. Instead of wiping my metal on my
Oh, you're fancy.
shirt, stuck a rag in my pocket. Okay. We'll be a little bit more aggressive this time, and I'm going to find a good piece of urethane. I keep going back to that same piece. Got lots of gnarly bits.
We'll have to remember to bring some fresh bits over.
Yeah. So just cut myself a chunk to sort of fit the shape of the die.
I made these too if you want to
Oh,
use
yeah.
those.
Just see how this goes, and then we'll do that.
I couldn't get it with urethane. I was too impatient.
Okay. So we're definitely getting more detail. I'm going to anneal it one more time, and then we'll talk about making an aluminum foil force, essentially,
So
which
you can
definitely comes in handy.
pick up the rest of the detail. Because you saw that piece she just had in her hand, but we're going, the level of detail we're going for looks more like this. And it's harder with metal that's 1 millimeter thick, like the 18 gauge, than it is with this really thin, like 26 gauge sheet metal. The metal has to like overcome its own thickness to work down into the die. So when I did these silver ones, I ended up using aluminum foil to get the last bits of detail because it was just hard to get it with urethane with this thick of silver. But these have a really nice weight.
Did you use 18?
18, yeah.
I'm not going to demonstrate how to make that aluminum force, but
We have,
talk about it.
yeah, we have so many videos.
So it is just balled up your aluminum foil from the kitchen. Nothing fancy.
Make
Go
a
to the
little
dollar store.
nasty nugget of it and squish it in your die.
Yep.
That's it.
So you make a big, a ball, a fairly, tight ball of aluminum foil, press it directly into your die. And then once you have your piece and you're able to really register the aluminum force on your design, you put them together, make sure everything is nestled in place. I'm just putting my finger on it, kind of wiggling it just to make sure that everything is aligned the way I want it to.
It pushes more solidly than the urethane does.
Yes.
It's not as squishy. It does compress.
So it's not a permanent thing. If you were going to make, let's say, I don't know, a bunch of these, 20, 30, 50 of these. I would use one of our aluminum plugs that we sell that you anneal first, and then press it, and it won't break down as fast.
Yeah, these guys.
And we do have videos
Showing.
and we have a video with an electric showing it and a video with a manual press, just showing that you can use a manual for everything that we demo. Okay, so now we're going to press this, and this will probably do it. This is, like Lynette said, is essentially making it so that you're pressing this solid. Just pressing it and rotating it. It's just a good way to get everything, get a really good even press. Rotate it a quarter turn. Okay. There's the force. And now we got everything. So it's a really good finishing step. I don't use aluminum in like the beginning stages, but it's a really nice way to really finish off that final pressing, get a really solid press. You can see there's no splitting. So working slowly, thicker gauge, annealing very regularly. Does it look like it's split? No.
It's just catching the light weird. It's not.
Okay.
It's just shiny right there.
Sure.
This is a really cool die. I think
It's
these would make
good.
really great earrings.
They'll look like this.
The right and lefts are always good.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
So that is showing what not to do and then how to do it. And so Lynette has another.
Okay, so now I'll show you if you don't want to have to go quite so slow and anneal so many times, another step you can do to mitigate splitting is softening this hard, sharp edge on your dies. And I do this a lot of the time with dies, especially when they have just like a crazy, right angle or a very abrupt angle like this. You're asking your metal to bend 90 degrees. That's hard for your metal to do while forming into this design. So we can just soften this a little bit, and so the metal will like smooth down in there instead of like having to go doot doot,
A really sharp turn.
Yeah, so I'm gonna hand the phone to Annie.
It's really simple and it can make a huge difference.
All right, so there's a few flex shaft tools that I like to use when doing something like this. You can use a coarse silicone wheel like this. So this is silicone with silicon carbide. Basically the grit that's on your sandpaper, it's embedded in this like rubber material, and you can use this along these edges. This one is coarse, so it's gonna be pretty aggressive. It's a very messy way of doing this. You're gonna create a lot of debris. So this isn't what I usually go to initially a lot of the time, because it's gonna hit this hard edge and it's just gonna make dust fly. You're gonna eat through this wheel really fast. But sometimes the design, these work better. So it depends. This is a medium grit of the same type of wheel, so the black medium. And then I also really like to use these sanding cartridges, sandpaper cartridges. They come in different grits as well. But most of the time I will start with a PSA sanding disc, like a flat sanding disc. You could also use a Morse sanding disc. And you want to make sure when you're grinding the steel that you're wearing like dust and eye protection.
You don't want steel in your eye.
No.
You can ask Kevin. He's done it
Oh
a
my
few
gosh.
times.
I remember in grad school, one of my friends got steel in her eye from grinding steel. And we were at Aeromont, which is like a craft school in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. And we had to go to, in the middle of the night, We had to go to like some backwoods clinic. I swear the doctor was like a veterinarian. And I had to like hold my friend down while they dug the steel out of her eye with a scalpel.
So
And
where?
the worst part of that is you have to like watch the knife coming for your own eye.
I have eye horror stories that I will not get into today. But
You don't want steel in your eye. So I'm being careful not to hit the design in there, but I'm just hitting this edge and trying to soften it so that the metal can kind of slide into the design rather than having to make that abrupt turn.
so just giving it a slight round over.
Yeah, and this is a 220 grit, so I'm starting fairly aggressive, and then I'll move to something softer.
And these are the same abrasives that you use on non-ferrous metals.
Yes.
Our impression dies are made out of a mild steel, so all of the tools that you use with copper, silver, they work to, modify your pucks. So she's keeping the abrasive moving, so she's not grounding like a big divot in any one spot.
And then once I kind of break that corner and smooth it out a little bit with the flat, I'll go to the sanding cartridge.
Let me show you. So this is the side she's softening, and then this is what it originally looked like. And you can see that big difference. There's that really sharp corner versus it's getting a little bit more rounded now.
Where did it go?
I'm hiding it.
Are you able to see that very well?
Pretty good.
Okay. It takes time to do this to your die, but you only have to do it once.
And the roundover is so small that you're not going to have any real noticeable difference in the finished pressing as far as having that sharp edge. It's just enough to break that sharpness so that the metal doesn't get kind of hung up on that sharp edge. And so she's just softening the edges of each of those little zigzag edges.
This is like worst case scenario die.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like
little tiny
Yeah.
things.
And so then after I finish with this, a lot of times if it still needs a little bit more, I'll switch to the less aggressive of the silicone wheels. So this is a medium wheel, and I'll just kind of finish off that edge. Again, these are the messiest option of the different flex shaft tools I've shown you. They're going to create a lot of dust. Sorry.
Yep. You have to hold things in weird angles so that you can reach what you're working on.
So that's pretty much how I would do that. And if you were here,
You could feel
I
it.
would make you feel it because you can feel a huge difference.
And this rounded over edge. You can see it too. You can see that rounded over versus this really sharp edge.
And Annie mentioned too, you can do this on your silhouette dies as well.
Yeah.
And I often do because the silhouette dies, especially if you have an electric press, it's so easy to split your metal because you're asking the metal to make that like 90-degree bend, 90-degree turn, and it's just hard for it.
It just doesn't want to.
No. So if you can smooth that edge just a little bit, it makes it so much easier.
Yeah. So that, I think that wraps it. We would answer questions.
Yeah, this is like a really rough sample, but one of the dies in this week's like big and bold spotlight works for those like magical ring holding necklaces. Ugh. Have you guys seen these? I didn't do a very good job of showing you just now, but you can like slide your wedding ring onto the necklace. So this could be one like that.
It's really smart.
That's kind of a modern design.
I don't wear my wedding ring.
I don't either.
Because I like my fingers and I don't want to get them caught in a machine.
We work in a machine.
But this is a really good way to, still wear your ring if you want to, just not on your finger.
Yeah. And then I made this really weird little box with the fly dye that's currently available, so this little fly can like buzz around on the lid. It's
I don't
silly.
think it's weird at all.
And then this is a pattern plate that's available with the kit Annie made. I don't remember the name of it. It's the triangle,
like split triangle earrings,
kit.
I believe.
Yeah, it's a good texture. I like it. So
let's look at, because people are going to ask like the inside of that box lid for how you attach.
Oh, it's just a balled up wire.
That is larger than the slit
Yeah.
that you carve, so it stays in place.
Yeah.
I have a couple other stampings that we've made. So these are another one of our big and bold impression die spotlight this week. Really fun, very geometric. I think they're called the Sydney fan earrings or something, because they do look sort of like the Sydney Opera House.
They'd be cool with a stone.
Yeah.
Or without.
It's another
This
very...
one, I just see Star Wars when I look at this.
Do
one.
you?
It's very Star Wars, right?
Trek.
Star Trek, whatever. That's not the kind of nerd I am.
I'm a different
kind of nerd. You're right. Star Trek, not Star Wars. Everyone's laughing at me now.
That's fine. Then these are ones Lynette press. It's really cool. Like as earrings with a pearl set.
Yeah, or
on
like
the top.
I see them as like hoops.
Oh, cool.
Like
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Or like long dangles.
A pendant. Just like that as well.
Yeah.
Those are fun. This is another one that's up. I think it's the extra large sunflower seed. And Lynette has started texturing this one with a hammer hand piece and a tiny little tip. There's another. We have a bunch of pairs on the site this week, which is really exciting. It's not often that we have left and rights of dies. Excuse me.
I started working on these. I think I'm gonna do like.
Ooh, pretty.
I haven't decided yet. I think that stone's in upside down, but earrings kind of like that with like a drop.
That pierced opening is really nice.
This one split on me right here.
Hold on. Oh, yep.
Hard to see. Sorry.
Oh, you're
Can you
good.
see it?
Yep.
Split down in that corner. I'm gonna just kind of sand it, but I would address it on the die if I was gonna use this more than once.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this one I started doing a little stippled texture with a hammer hand piece, which I like the look of. I just need to finish it.
It sort of mimics the look of this like fused silver dust.
Yeah.
Okay, and then one more. I pressed one of each size of the fly. This one's only up for today. It was up yesterday and today. But this little family of flies, I love them. Again, I did a video yesterday and posted on our YouTube channel showing how I pressed this fly and almost split it, but it's a little bit more, I guess, in depth. Not really, but it covers a lot more ways to press these deeper dyes as well. So be sure to check out our big and bold spotlights. And we also have monthly impression dies that are up through the end of September.
Which is coming up quick.
Gosh, I don't know how, but yes.
Yep, and then we'll be back here live next Wednesday morning.
Yeah, and we got big plans for you. So thanks for watching, everybody.